Midwest Regional Office, and I want to welcome you to today's SNAP Employment and Training and Work-Based Learning meeting today. I hope that everyone is doing well and is excited as I am about what we'll learn today. So, of course, again, we got off to an exciting start. So this meeting is a collaborative effort between the Midwest and Western Regional Offices. So my colleague, Jesus Mendoza, the Western Region Office Regional Administrator, and I certainly appreciate the time that you all have invested in being here with us. Ray and Brian have worked really hard to bring together an extraordinary panel to share their knowledge and experience with us. So again, we'll hear from a couple panels today. So I know that you all have brought lots of energy and a love of learning and will benefit from our time together today. So I won't take any more of our time because I know we're a little behind, but I'd like to turn it over to Moira Johnston, our USDA SNAP Office of Employment and Training Director, for some opening remarks. And again, I want to welcome you to our meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, that was exciting. Lots of things going on there this morning. What a way for you guys in the Western region to wake up. But thank you everyone for being so patient and for sticking with us as we work through this. The sad thing is that I had like 20 minutes of remarks scheduled, and I think that was Brian's way of saying to me, Moira, just keep them short. Keep them short. We have more fun to do. So that said, I'm not gonna. I'm just want to say thank you all for being here and for doing this webinar on work-based learning. I do want to just mention a few things that are going on in employment and training to share with you some of our priorities as we go into the new year, or as we go into this year. So instead of putting a lot of words around them, I'm just going to really focus on the fact that this year, looking into looking at the state plans and implementing the Farm Bill rules, we're really looking for programs that are high quality. As Brian mentioned, we're really looking for quality E&T programs, and we're also looking for compliant E&T programs. So, and we're also going to be starting to look at SNAP E&T through an equity lens to make sure that SNAP E&T is not doing anything to exacerbate equity and working more towards, improving equity. So, amongst the quality programs that we're really interested in seeing are those such as work-based learning. So I'm really interested to hear more about from the providers who are doing that. And so that is really all I'm going to say this morning, so you guys can launch into your panelists, because I think what they have to say is a lot more important than what I do. But just thank you guys so much for being here. And I look forward to hearing more about what you all are doing.
Thank you so much, Moira. Hey, really quickly, just want to let everybody know that we are recording this webinar. We're going to try to get the recording out to everybody so that they all know, can follow up and listen to it again if needed, or for people who missed it. Also, we're going to do Q&A at the end of every panel. So we're going to dive right in here to panel one and get started, especially since we're so far behind. But just know, hopefully we'll still have time to do some Q&A and discussion at the end of each panel. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started with panel one. I think Penny is bringing up the PowerPoints right now. And we'll start with Ann Nicklin as soon as we get there. Thank you, Penny. We're glad you finally were able to get in.
Oh, Ann, did you have slides to present?
Yeah.
So let her request control, and then you can show your slides. You can share.
Oh, okay. I like this on the fly thing that we're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I request control.
If the federal government's known for one thing, it's our nimbleness and responsiveness.
I've always thought of the federal government as, a high quality improviser. Yeah. All right, so how do I request control? I'm sorry, I'm not a Teams person.
It's at the top. Just hit the share button at this point because I think Penny unshared. So up in the top left, there's a little box with an arrow pointing into it. That's the share content. It's on the upper right.
It is most certainly not on my screen, so let's see.
Okay.
Right.
Do you have a pull down menu?
I do not have a pull-down menu.
So
I have-
Ann, right at the right top of your screen, do you see a leave button?
I have like a bar in the middle that's got a camera and microphone.
Is there a
And
little
next to the microphone, is there a little square?
Yeah, that's the one.
The one that has an arrow on it. Okay.
Yes.
That's it.
Gotcha. Sorry. And so I just share that screen. I go full screen. Can you guys see it?
Yep,
Yeah,
we
it's
got
coming
it.
through.
All right, fantastic.
Thanks, Ann. Take it away.
Yeah, apologies for the slight struggle there. So I'm Ann Nicklin. I am the Director of Workforce Training and now, of course, I've got to hit present. I'm the Director of Workforce Training and Deconstruction Services at the Evanston Rebuilding Warehouse. And in a thing that I've never done before, I'm actually going to start a timer because I know we're so tight on time and I tend to go over a little bit sometimes. We recently merged. So after we took on this huge adventure of becoming a Snap to Success provider in the state of Illinois, we launched last year. Our contract year started July 2020, and we launched with our first Snap to Success trainees in August 2020. Inside of that year, we also moved to a new warehouse. And then to just, top things off, we decided to merge with another organization. So we are now throughout the Evanston Rebuilding Warehouse, but we have two warehouses, one in Evanston, a suburb just north of Chicago, and then one actually down in the city in Chicago. So we've got two warehouses, 3 trucks, 1 decon crew, and about 50,000 square feet of donated materials. So we went just really big this year, and we're going to continue to go really big. Snap ENT has been a phenomenal change for us. In general, our workforce training program, which is now being hosted both at our Evanston deconstruction crew site, as well as our Chicago warehouse site. We are keeping the standard things standard. So I'll breeze through some of these. I think you guys are generally familiar as a Snap ENT program and the way that we've been for 5 years as a workforce training program. We serve folks who have barriers to employment. Those can vary all over the place. Sometimes it's somebody who has Asperger's, sometimes it's somebody with housing instability. Our admission requirements are active SNAP recipient, 18 years and over, minimum sixth grade math and reading level. We have been using a TABE test, but we're looking at switching over to a CASAS test to try and have a kind of less, kind of pushback on that. But more than anything, we're looking for folks who are motivated to engage and succeed. We provide work experience, so about 30 hours per week. This can vary a little bit depending on how many weeks there are in the month and how close we get to $1,755 each month for our trainees. Everybody currently earns minimum wage, which in Chicago right now is $14 an hour, and in about 3 weeks we'll go to $15 an hour. 5 months or 20 weeks is our typical tenure. For us, it's all about working with a team, working with a crew. So you get that experience not only of following direction, but of getting along with people. We have found that that's probably the strongest piece that leads to employment success is being able to work with other folks. And then critical decision making throughout. I'm not talking in huge depth about deconstruction today, but for those of you who may have not encountered the salvage market before, in general, we serve the industry where we salvage materials that would otherwise be thrown away. So sometimes that means we're taking down an entire house and we're saving all of the 2x4s, all of the flooring, all of the everything except for drywall and plaster. And then we sell it in our warehouses. So we are in that side space. I know Manny might talk about that a little bit later. He deals with some salvage materials as well. We do professional certifications, OSHA 10, EPA RRP Renovator. The RRP Renovator is not a common certification, but we found that from a public health perspective, the lead paint education is deeply critical, not only for the work experience, but also just for how folks are existing in their communities and keeping their families safe. And then we do forklift, standing and sitting forklift, and we partner with the Jane Addams Resource Council. So you'll hear from them later, and they're the ones who provide that training for us. We also do some classroom training. We do financial readiness, weekly meditation, construction math, tools and skills development. But overall, what we're really focusing on is professional readiness, barrier reduction, all that good stuff. So since we're focusing on the work-based learning, This is basically how it lays out for us. So we've got kind of workforce training in the middle. We have standard things that everybody is getting no matter what site they are at. They're getting the core classroom, the core focused learning opportunities, the financial, the certifications, those kinds of things. And then what really varies for a trainee, depending on which location they are based out of, will be where their work-based learning is occurring. So in Evanston, it'll be on a deconstruction site. Evanston works Monday through Thursday right now, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's going to switch up a little bit when we go to $15 an hour because we need to get creative. Because for us, we're not simulating work, we're doing work. And about 75% of what our trainees are doing is actually carrying out work. We get paid to do deconstruction work, and that's the money that we use to then pay wages for our trainees, since none of that can come out of the SNAP funding. In Chicago, they're based in our warehouse, so they're getting a lot more experience moving materials, dealing with customers. They go out on the truck and do a lot more logistics work. And then we will, in 2022, be expanding to host trainees in our Evanston warehouse as well. The thing that has really driven us in our work-based learning and that we are spending a lot of time on developing right now is kind of our core principles of coaching. What we realized with work-based learning was that it really matters who it is. So both of our site supervisors in Evanston as well as in Chicago are graduates of our program, Compton in Evanston and Kinata in Chicago, and it makes a huge difference. Not just in their lived experience, but mainly in how they meet people. So these core principles of coaching have been actually kind of transformative, not only in how we run our workforce training and our work-based learning, but how we expand that to the rest of the staff in our organizations, right? Because this is actually a $2 million organization that does not just do workforce training. The vast majority of what happens, 60% of our budget is actually warehouse sales, logistics, all those kinds of pieces. So there's a lot of permanent staff that our trainees are working alongside. And we realized that we needed to share our core principles of coaching and make sure that people are really being met where they're at. So I won't read through them. There's nothing worse than a slide. But one of the things that I did really want to kind of draw on is one of the lower bullet points is to teach people in a way that they have access to the correct resources and access to understanding the principles that they are being asked to execute before they are asked to execute it in a consequential way. It's a deeply wordy sentence and I can't figure out a way to make it better. But I learned it at a training a couple of years ago on how to have an anti-racist classroom. And it really has stuck with me that asking people to perform a task or perform a test, anything like that, when there are real life consequences, whether it's going to be acceptance to college or whether it's going to be a bathtub falling down the stairs onto you, is fundamentally unkind and going to cause failure and put people in a stressful situation. So we actually spend quite a bit of time creating educational environments that are both active and passive at all of our warehouses so that folks can learn in non-consequential ways so that they can have that opportunity to understand beforehand. So these are a few examples of what we do. On the right-hand side is an electrical wall that we built out that actually plugs into the wall so that our trainees can learn about electricity, so that they can see the flip side of a wall and start removing light fixtures before they are actually connected to a fuse box. And then on the left-hand side, this is kind of a fun thing that we did recently where we have one room in our warehouse that literally every single system passes through. And so we painted all the pipes and all the systems so that you can see the red is the fire sprinkler system, the yellow is the gas system, the green is the rainwater system. There's a few other colors hiding around there. There's a blue back there for potable water. But so it's a way for, and that's actually my trainees on the bottom left, one of my site supervisors and two trainees painting it, so that we can get that active and passive learning and consistently expose folks to really the wide variety that is the building trades. Because for us, when we talk about building trades, I think a lot of folks here get them into the unions. And what we actually are talking about is the entire building trades economy, which is enormous. So I've got folks who really want to get into the digital sides of things. I'm like, great, that's awesome. The building trades is huge. If you want to be a programmer and you want to do it at a company that focuses on construction materials or architecture or something like that, there's plenty of opportunity out there. I'm a strong believer that the vast majority of my trainees are not going to make a living on their bodies for the rest of their lives. And so we want to transition them and get exposure and access to the building trades, but recognize that by the time they're 45, their knees are probably going to be shot. And you can't actually prepare for the next 40 years to make a living based on how much you can lift. So we're trying to look at that long term and build out an expertise in materials, build out an expertise in the process that goes into building, really help to understand the entire building trades economy. That's also been critical as we've moved from having just the deconstruction crew to also having warehouse trainees, because what they're learning in terms of warehousing, in terms of logistics, is directly transferable to a wide range of building trades industries, not just the union labor. So warehouse, we reuse everything. You can see kind of a great thing here where the ceiling panels on the left-hand side are in the exact same space. We harvested them and then put them in the walls. And my trainees actually got a chance to install this wall with members of the Carpenters Union who came in and volunteered with us.
Hey, Ann,
Yep.
just be mindful of time.
I know, I'm skipping fast now. Professional expectations, we do the LA Rise worksheet. Our folks clock in and out, and then they've got to meet customer expectations as well. We do quite a bit of peer-to-peer learning. So my site supervisor, Compton, is actually the one hiding on the left out of the picture. This is my trainees teaching one another. So I've got a trainee who's been with us for 2 months on the right-hand side, teaching 2 new trainees who have been there. That was actually on their first day. Supportive services has been a game changer for us. Starting people day one with the correct tools has been phenomenal. You can see one of my graduates, Kimbo, on the right. She became a professional painter. 4 months later, she's doing amazing. But starting her job with the right gear really put her on the right foot. And with all of that, we kind of got the impacts for employment. Most of our folks short-term are going into open shop employment, so non-union employment. But what we're seeing is that folks then 2 years down the road are ready to get into union employment once they have stabilized literally every aspect of their lives. So we're looking at kind of a short-term phase, a medium-term phase, and a long-term phase. Biggest wins and challenges. The culture of worth and the culture of abundance has been extraordinary, particularly with supportive services. Just to tell people, like, yeah, you got that. I can get that for you. We can absolutely make that happen. After kind of a model where we had to beg, borrow, and steal for everything is just a game changer. Practice crew workers, that is the strongest piece for us for employment, is people who are pleasant to work with. That's why employers keep coming back to us, is because frankly, we have nice people. And critical thinking. Biggest challenges for us, that $17.55 a month maximum earning is a nightmare. And then recruitment of qualified individuals who are meeting the actual SNAP eligibility requirements has been, frankly, really difficult for us. That's it. All right, 2 minutes over. Sorry about that, Ray.
That was great. I really got a lot of takeaways, especially the core principles of coaching. Our next speaker.
All right.
Is Molly Dowling? Molly, I see you.
Here, I'm here.
We have slides there for you. Penny's going to show them. Here we go.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this panel. It's an honor, and no problem about any of the tech stuff. We're just going with the flow. So again, thanks so much for the invitation. Happy to talk about the work that we're doing at OAI. So Penny, you can go to the next slide. I am the executive director of OAI. We are a nonprofit workforce development organization headquartered in Chicago. Penny, did you get my note about moving forward to the next slide? We've been around for more than 45 years. Our mission is to offer skills training that leads to safe, meaningful employment and helps companies and communities to thrive. We work in a number of sectors, through all of the sectors we work in. We're looking for pathways that help folks escape poverty and have additional career opportunities throughout their work experience. So Penny, next slide. As I said, we work in a lot of sectors, and 2 of them are the manufacturing and logistics sector. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about our employer engagement and sector partnership approach to this work, as well as the workplace learning experiences that we support inside of these sectors. So next slide, please. For this work, we focus in the Chicagoland area and specifically on the south side and southern suburbs. And in our work, we're really thinking about an integrated workforce development, education, and economic development strategy. So what that means is it can't just be about work and the availability of work. It has to be, as Anne so expertly explained, it really is about, the holistic supports necessary for someone to be successful. And just as that's true for an individual, it's also true for communities, for regions, and for economies. And so we know that thinking about work and talent, the availability of talent is important for companies, But it's not just about, the job training that we offer. It's also about the health and wellness of the school system. It's about the health and wellness of the technical colleges. It's about, the sort of other supports that are available to businesses in the region in order for them to be successful. And this integrated approach, is also really important, I think, for this audience today. While I'm talking about our work in the Southland, focusing in the manufacturing and the logistics sectors, it applies to you as an industry in the way that perhaps the Economic Development Administration is partnering with the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Labor and the Small Business Development Administration, for instance, how all of these agencies can work together to support business, to support job seekers, and support our communities. So you can go ahead and move to the next slide, Penny. Thanks. Looks like we're losing some of the graphics on these slides, which is okay. So what this is meant to show is that the way that we employ, sort of engage with companies is through a sector partnership approach. We have a partnership called the Calumet Manufacturing Industry Sector Partnership, which has over 100 companies that have been a part of it over the last couple of years. It's really meant to be employer-led, and it's really a new approach to this concept, because instead of telling companies about what we have to offer, organizations like ours are really in listening mode and asking companies what they need and how we can serve those needs through our workforce resources, through our economic development resources, through our educational resources, et cetera. So that's been incredibly successful. And it's that out of that work that all of our work-based learning programs emerge. So Penny, we can go to the next slide, please. We have a number of work-based learning programs at OAI in these sectors. They include the Manufacturing Careers Internship Program. They include something called Opportunity Works that I'm going to expand on, something called Youth Career Pathways, and Youth Pre-Apprenticeships. Every one of these programs includes a boot camp with job readiness, which is between 3 and 4 weeks, where that's sort of the exclusive focus of training. They also include the OSHA 10-hour general industry safety and forklift certification. They include employer tours and industry exposure, as well as an 8-week paid work experience in a company. So this is where this work-based learning really is highlighted the most, in this 8-week paid experience. Some of the supplementary components that are not in every single program, but are in some of them, include Maker Lab training, robotics club participation, CNC machining certification through the National Institute of Metalworking Skills, or using a web portal we've developed called Intern Match. So all of these are really exciting sort of outgrowths of the original internship program that includes this 8-week paid internship. So next slide, Penny, please. Going in more depth into the Opportunity Works program, this is the 8-week paid internship. It's targeting young adults, 18 to 24. OAI is the employer of record for these individuals during their internship experience. So that's one of the hallmarks that makes this program unique, is that it sort of gives this incredible exposure to the real world work environment for these individuals without, a lot of liability on the company side. Whoops, we can go back to that slide. It's 4 days a week, with 1 day being preserved for ongoing coaching, mentoring, and career readiness. Another unique aspect is that the companies who are participating and the students interview each other, and there's a match that's made based on location and transportation access, but also, candidate interest, to make sure that folks don't just get assigned an internship site. Really, the company has to choose who they would select, they would like to participate, and the students themselves also choose which company they would like to be a part of. We have, as part of our supports of the students, we're visiting each site multiple times during the 8-week period to provide, a real hands-on support to both the company and the student. Of course, our ultimate goal is that the host site hires these folks on full-time once the internship is over. It's not a mandatory aspect of hosting interns, but of course, that is our end goal. Ray and Brian asked us to talk a little bit about some of the challenges and opportunities. So I would say that Finding enough host sites for our students tends to sometimes be a challenge. And then if groups are on one site together, so let's say there's 3 or 4 individuals at a given company, if one of those individuals is, for instance, responsible as the driver because they're the one person who has a reliable car, and then that car breaks down, sometimes the whole thing can fall apart. So we've seen instances like that where a really great employer and a great opportunity wasn't able to be ultimately successful. So we work through that every cycle. This, by the way, we have ongoing cohorts enrolling all the time throughout the year, and the program's been going on for a number of years. So this is something that we're constantly enrolling and placing people into. However, companies tell us all the time this is an awesome source of fresh young talent. It's low risk for them because of the that we're in the employer record for their sort of long extended interview period of the internship, and that all of the institutional support we offer the companies is incredibly valuable to them. So next slide. I know we're just about out of time. I just wanted to quickly highlight one success story. This young man joined the program in 2018. He successfully went through the internship program at a company called National Tube Supply. He had a little work experience in his background, but not much. He also was able to advance into the pre-apprenticeship program. I know the next panel is on apprenticeship. And in that, he earned a couple of CNC machining certifications. His internship experience went so well at National Tube, they ultimately hired him. He's maintained his position there for the couple of years since then, and he continues to do incredibly well. I get positive feedback all the time. So stories like this, make it all worthwhile. So if you can forward one more slide, I think this is my last one. Employers are always looking for talent. They want someone who is job ready. We tell them these work-based learning experiences is the best way to evaluate that talent to confirm these are the folks they want to hire. We know that hands-on problem-based activities build skills, and so putting someone on the job is the best way to do that. Making sure you have a coordinated approach to working with employers is also a key strategy for success through something like a sector partnership. The success skills is another word for the job readiness skills, but those are always critical. And, transportation as well as childcare continue to be barriers that we have to address with SNAP recipients and really all workforce development participants. And so that is just, making sure we have the funds for that is critical for the whole program. So thank you so much for your time today, and I look forward to the Q&A at the end.
Thank you. Great job. Our next speaker, Adonis Somerville and Reagan Brewer Johnson from the Jane Addams Resource Corporation.
Hi there. Thanks for having me. My name's Reagan, and I'm with the Jane Addams Resource Corporation, or JARC, as we are more commonly known. So our mission at JARC is to help transition people out of poverty, and we do that through a combination of technical skills training, which we're going to talk about, as well as support services. The support services are really aimed at going from sort of financial triage to stabilization and then into wealth building and wealth creation. But in terms of our technical skills training, we focus on the manufacturing sector, similar to OAI. But within the manufacturing sector, we focus on metalworking specifically. So machining, welding, metal forming, any kind of metalworking process is kind of our area of expertise. Within our programs, we have a number of what we refer to be as best practice things that we plug into our program design. Essentially, they're work-based learning concepts. So the first two, open entry, open exit, and simulated work environment, really kind of go hand in hand. So in terms of open entry, open exit, we're always enrolling, always placing people. We don't have a cohort model where we have start dates and end dates. So if someone applies to the program today, we think they're a good fit for the program, we'll, negotiate with them on their start date and say, hey, can you get started on Monday? And it's a simulated work environment. So just like how you started your job at FNS or DHS or whatever, wherever you're at, you didn't start with 15 other people. And so you're often starting on your own. Everything in our shop is designed to mirror a manufacturing facility. We've got 3 sites in the Chicago area. One is actually housed within one of the largest manufacturing companies in the city limits. So we also pull our instructors from the industry, and many of our staff come from the manufacturing sector. So we're able to really create what feels like a manufacturing facility when you walk into our training facility. We don't do grades. It's not traditional adult education. Everything is projects. Everything is competency-based. You have to demonstrate that you can do the work in order to progress through our program. So it's not like we do, quizzes and tests and things like that. It's show me that you can weld a T-joint, or show me that you can do a setup on a CNC machine. So projects are really referred to as work orders. And trainees need to complete those work orders for their instructor, who's like the shop lead or the shop supervisor. And then we incorporate some job shadowing towards the end of our program, so folks can be on the shop floor and see what it's like to be in a manufacturing environment. I'm going to hand it over to Adonis Somerville. If you could move to the next slide. Adonis is one of our senior metalworking skills instructors. And again, like I said, we pull from industry. So he has over a decade of experience in machining. And that comes in handy when he is implementing the curriculum and working with our trainees. So he's going to talk a little bit more about like what some of those concepts actually look like and in practice.
Hello. Hello, my name is Adonis Somerville. I actually worked in CNC for about 10 years now. I worked at Trelleborg Sealing Solutions for 2 years. Then I worked at John Crane, which is in Morton Grove, for the following 8 years before and while I started working at JARC. I typically run our shop just like I would go to work at John Crane. You come in, we have a time clock, or now because of COVID, we have a sign-in sheet. We have a point system. Everyone knows to be there 15 minutes before start time. Once everyone starts, everyone already has their predestined thing that they're working on. There's no one sitting around. You're always moving. You're always working. Whether you're programming, whether you're on the machine, whether you're shadowing one of the other trainees, everything that they make comes as a work order. It comes in a packet with a tool list. The program is something that they already written. They have to go to the machine, put the tools together, put everything together pretty much from scratch like it's a job. They have to make the piece. It's strictly pass or fail, like she was saying before. There is no, I don't do it based off grades, because in my field, there is no grades. You either make it right or you make it wrong, and you got to make it again. Quality is one of the biggest things we do for checking our parts. Most of our pieces, or our inspection piece, has a tolerance of like plus or minus 2,000, which is half the thickness of a sheet of paper. Machine etiquette is another big thing that I learned that I try to pass on. Clean the machine out when you're done. Make sure you turn off all the lights, clean up your chips, clean up any wax that's on the floor, check the oil, check the coolant. It's something that I've been doing for so long. It feels secondhand for me. It's like something I'm so used to doing. So it's just easy to pass on to them and get them ready for it, because when they go out there in a job, they're pretty much going to see the same thing over and over. When they do get on the machine, I am extremely hands-on to the point where I can leave them there and walk off, and I know that they're going to do what they're supposed to do, because I have different trainees at different spots. So I need to make sure I can tend to everyone's needs and make sure we move at a nice, good flow and get everyone out and everyone placed. That is about it.
Thanks, Adonis. So yeah, we look forward to any questions, and thanks again for having us.
Thank you. That was great. Next, we have Anna, and I'm not sure I can pronounce your last name, but Anna from the Culinary Academy of Las Vegas.
It is hard to pronounce that last name. Pulich.
Pulich.
Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. And Thank you so much for inviting me to this summit. It's a pleasure to be part of it. And I'm going to start with a little presentation from Culinary Academy of Las Vegas. So I don't know how many of you know, but I know some people know about Culinary Academy. We are the largest provider of training for entry-level and incumbent workers in the Las Vegas hospitality. So our company was established 1993 as a Taft-Hartley Trust Fund according to collective bargaining agreement. I know all these labor companies, they know what that means. So that's labor management partnership with 2 local unions, Culinary Local 226, Bartenders Local 165, and 35 premier resorts properties on Las Vegas Strip. When I say 35, that means pretty much the whole strip except a couple of properties who are not union properties. Next slide, please. The Culinary Academy has a board of trustees, and it's consisted of leaders from labor and management side of hospitality industry. They really ensure that our work remains mission-minded and continue to serve current and future hospitality workers in Southern Nevada. So we train a couple of thousands of people annually in 12 different classifications. All of our classifications are approved by the licensed by Commission on Post-Secondary Education. So I'm just going to talk a little bit more about the programs that we offer. So we have 3 in the back of the house, which is professional cook, baker's helper, and stewarding program. And all 3 programs are hands-on. We have a full operation running, commercial kitchen size in the back, and plus we have a restaurant that it's open to public. That's where our students cook food, serve food, take orders, and they also clean once the restaurant is closed. There are 3 positions in front of the house: food server, bus person, fountain worker. It's all hands-on. We have all the machines to prepare all these beautiful coffee drinks, and fountain worker may not be a familiar position for you. That's a barista position that makes our coffee every morning. It's really popular in Las Vegas area. Understanding that 22 Starbucks coffee shops are inside our employer partners, and those are our incumbent workers that come back and train for these positions. We offer 4 positions in the beverage department. Entry level will be bar porter. It goes to apprentice bartender, wine server, and sommelier. So wine server and sommelier, very popular positions among our incumbent workers. Those are the ones who are already employed in the industry. They're trying to better their life, to make more money, so they come to learn more wine. And some of them just don't go for sommelier. They just want to continue to be a fine dining servers, bartenders, cocktail servers, but they need to know more about wines. So we also offer housekeeping training, which is the guest room attendant and house person utility. And for everybody knows that COVID really hit hard. There was no positions available. And right now there's so many positions available that I'm getting requests from employer partners on a daily basis. How can we partner? How many more housekeepers can we get from you, train? And same as house person utility. So speaking of all of our classifications, during the COVID time, we were able to add digital literacy to include together with employability and soft skills. So they take 1 week of digital literacy and employability before they actually start training on vocational programs. We also offer English as a second language classes, and also we offer vocational English. I don't know how many of you use that word, vocational English, but it's really to teach people enough English where they can go and perform that job duty for that classification. And there are entry level for bar porter, stewarding, guest room attendant, house person utility. One of our new programs, it's pending on a post-secondary commission on post-secondary education. It's going to be sanitation technician. I'm not sure if you have had a chance to see every company during pandemic was hiring sanitation technician, from small and fast food restaurants to real estate companies. They need somebody who's gonna definitely stay always on the top of cleaning and sanitizing the common areas. Next slide, please. So just last month, we got our first registered cook apprenticeship program in Nevada. So we do take pride to be in the first one. Nobody can believe it. It's a culinary, and Nevada does not have a professional cook apprenticeship approved. So our apprenticeship will be competency-based program, up to 2,000 hours on job learning and 156 classroom hours. All of our classifications have a classroom hours, and where they need to learn technology. It's a big piece. As everybody knows, even in hospitality, the guest room attendants, maids, they're receiving device where they're getting their daily assignments. So they need to be able to operate these devices. We know people are making orders via Toast or Genesis, so we're training our food and beverage students on technology as well. So we always look, when we outreach and recruit, we always talk and think about positive recruitment efforts to increase apprenticeship opportunities and other classifications and participation by women and people of color. Also, we look to really secure employment for unemployed, underemployed, people where justice involved. Also, as I mentioned, of women, minorities, and youth from 18 to 24 years old, trying to get them vocational skills, have them learn a skill instead of just getting maybe a small temporary job or an entry-level position at the minimum wage. Most of our students have a direct connection to 35 Las Vegas Strip properties. We have graduation every month for all of our students, and majority of our employers come and attend graduation and offer jobs to our graduates on the spot. So our graduates receive certificate of completion, which is recognized in job market as a 1 year of experience. And that's basically what you need to get these good paying jobs on the Strip. Next slide, please. So we serve incumbent workers, students, and also a new entrant students. 50% of students are incumbents, 50% are incumbents, and new students, and 50% it's incumbent. Over 85% of our new students qualify for state or federal funds, so they don't pay tuition fee. We were the 2020 was really good year for us. We started emergency food assistance program. We were able to employ and also secure food for students and for the community. But also we got funds from Clark County to provide supportive services. I've heard, I think it was Molly talking about supportive services like transportation, like childcare. It's really hard for people if they don't receive that. So now we have the funds to assist our students with supportive services. It could be a uniform, it could be a shoes, it could be a card, because on the Strip in Las Vegas, you have to have a health card and you have to have a beverage card in order to start working in the industry. So we also support labor and management through special projects by training staff for new or remodeled food and beverage venues and hotel rooms. So we even trained workers during the remodeling of a huge property of 5,000-6,000 employees. We would come in and do assessment for each venue and do a special project, special training for those employees, so they would not be displaced. They will have the skills to go into the new venue or to continue to do their work. I'm not sure if I have one more slide here.
Well, I think we're done.
Yes.
Because you're out of time.
I do appreciate, sorry if I ran over the time, but I will be available for Q&A after presentations. Thank you.
That was great, and I'm sure, and I have some questions on your apprenticeship programs too, but that goes with Q&A. Our next speaker is Chris Costa, and I'm sorry for being so abrupt, but we're behind schedule. Is Chris Costa on?
Yep, I'm ready to go. So
Okay.
as per the norm, the last speaker gets to absorb all the lack of time, but that's okay. I'll try and work quickly. My name is Chris Costa. I'm the Dean of Career Technical Education at West Hills College, Lemoore. We're one of 116 California community colleges. We're located in Lemoore, California, in the heart of the Central Valley, a very rural area, a lot of manufacturing, a lot of agriculture, a lot of food processing in our neck of the woods. Next slide, please. So I put this slide up here because this is what work-based learning is all about. It's not about getting students to completion, it's about their journey along the way. And obviously this is the mission of the community college system. You know, the community college system is one of those that we don't have, I don't want to say the luxury, but it is kind of a luxury. We don't get to pick who we get. We accept the top 100% of students that apply to our programs. So we have to make it work. And it is through intrusive work-based learning that we're able to get them to the finish line. Next slide, please. So normally I would ask people to think about what their first job was, because I think that's a really important framework for people to consider. If you take a second and think about, when did you first enter the workforce? What were you paid for that job? How old were you? What did you learn from that experience? I know I started working when I was 15 at a mini market making fried chicken and checking out video VCR tapes, right? But I learned something from that. Next slide, please. If you look at our workforce now, our student population in Lemoore now, roughly 1/3 of the students that are coming to us, that are high school graduates coming to us, have ever held a job. They've ever been in the workforce. They don't understand taxes. They don't understand how to show to work on time. They don't understand what it means to be responsible to an employer, responsible to a supervisor. So we have to meet these students where they are. And so when we talk about work-based learning, and we talk about within the context of pre-apprenticeship, apprenticeship, internship, our students aren't ready to enter our doors and immediately go into an internship. So that's where our work-based learning strategies come into play, because we have to be able to get them where they want to go, because we only have them for a short time. Many of our students are with us 2 semesters, many only a semester. So our short-term training programs in particular, we are hitting it hard to get them where they need to be. Next slide, please. So normally we would talk about, why work-based learning. I think we've beat this horse already in the time that we've been together. We all agree that work-based learning is important. But I think in the community college, what's important for people to understand is, in our CTE programs, our faculty are experts in the field. They're subject matter experts. They have long careers in a variety of disciplines, whatever it is that they're teaching. But when they're in the classroom, they are the teacher. And so we have to have folks that come in and serve as that employer role, because no matter how wonderful a faculty member they are still a teacher, and they don't represent the workforce in the classroom. Next slide, please. So we view work-based learning as an instructional strategy. It is relevant to every single program that we have at the college. In California, we have implemented something called guided pathways. And in the guided pathways model, that means that we have to work with students across the 4 pillars of, starting, continuing, and finishing. So we have something called the STRONG framework. We want students to get strong, start strong, stay strong, finish strong. So work-based learning is spread across that continuum. It happens immediately. It happens in all classes. It does not happen by accident. It is intentional. And faculty doing projects with students helps, but it's not enough. Next slide. So this is heavy. This is a lot. When you get this slide, you can dissect this slide. But this is a work-based learning continuum that our high school partners are implementing already in our region. They have been for many years now. And you can see the continuum of work-based learning experience that we expect out of our students in CTE pathways. It begins with awareness. What does this career look like? It leads to exploration, exploring different kinds of careers, preparation in terms of internship and training, which is kind of what falls into that classical definition of work-based learning, and then training and learning in order to put in place. So this is kind of a regional definition, but next slide will show us, go ahead and go there, will show us what we've implemented at our college. So this is what we're looking at. So when we work with our faculty, we say, hey, let's set an expectation or a goal for one experience in each of our classes for every student, so that when we think about awareness, are we bringing guest speakers into our classrooms? Are we touring industry with our classes? What are the kinds of things that students should be doing in each of those columns, in each of the pillars of our guided pathways model to help them get strong, start strong, stay strong, finish strong? If we do nothing in the blue, green, and orange column, and then we expect them to be able to complete an internship, we have done that student an injustice. We need to prepare them. And that's resumes and interviews and job shadows. And there's so many things that lead to the preparation of that student, because many of ours are starting at ground zero. Next slide, please. So this was supposed to have some animation in it, so I apologize, but we do lots of different events where we invite employers to our college campus in Lemoore. And one of them is something called Entree to Employment. We have a clothes closet where we provide students professional clothing to come and have dinner with employers, to just practice networking skills, to practice talking shop talk, if you will. We have a culinary program, so I appreciated Anna's presentation. We have a wonderful culinary program on our campus, and so they cater a lovely meal for us. And it provides students that experience to get early access to employers and to make connections. Next slide, please. One of the challenges, though, and I've seen this in the chat, is finding quality internships is difficult. We have a very small town, so it can be challenging. Next slide, please. So we've created some different models for internships, some creative internship models, like internship level projects. Many of these are unpaid projects. You might refer to them as gig work, but we have lots of industry partners that say, you know, I don't want to have the burden of an intern in my space, or I don't have the room for them, but I do have a project I need them to work on. I'll provide supervision on the project management, but you house them where you are. You have a faculty mentor, and we'll work through this project together as a partnership, like you would an independent contractor. So they're applying skill. They're working as an independent contractor, so to speak, either paid or unpaid. We can offer them a stipend in many cases to do so as a scholarship. So we're developing those kinds of models. So next slide, please. Next slide is an example of one that we did. Our Kings County Farm Bureau said, we need a map that shows all of our farm stands. Do you have a team of students that could work on developing a GPS map, a digital map, work with an artist to develop this project? And so this is what they did. They had an industry mentor, and they did some project management skills, and they went out and mapped. They worked with growers in the region. It was wonderful. Next slide, please. We use something called Job Speaker, which is our student college and business connecting software. So this is where all of our jobs, our internships, our projects, everything is posted on that site. That is the connection piece where employers can find potential new employees, new interns. It's where students apply to get opportunities. Next slide, please. There we go. And we talk about, you know, what we should look for in terms of quality work-based learning partners. These are some of the things that we ask when someone comes to us. We say, this is what we're looking for, and we ask them, what do you want? And I think it's really important for our partners. They want to be involved. They want to feel valued. They want to be asked. And I think many colleges in particular, they lack the ask. Ask the partners, and they will deliver. Next slide, please. And then lastly, I think it's important for our practitioners that are in classrooms with students, for our faculty, know who you're partnering with. You know, I have this little running with scissors cartoon here, because it's important to understand who you're running with when you're developing these programs for students, provide follow-up, measure the outcomes, you know, just that continuous improvement model. So I went as fast as I could. I hope that was valuable. Thank you so much for allowing me to participate with you today.
Great time management. Thank you.
All right, well, we don't have any questions in. Why don't we were planning on 20 minutes for questions, but maybe we can shorten that up a little bit since we're so behind. But we're doing great, and really appreciate all those panelists and all the information you shared. Just for attendees, note that we know we're missing a lot on this. We talked a lot about this, Ray and I, about how to plan this. And we know a lot of you have questions about like how to connect and make into E&T partners and how to really go through the process of developing E&T partnerships. Feel free to ask that, but we really wanted to spend more time on that in our second session, which we're hoping to have in October or November, and a deeper dive on how this connects. So this one, we really wanted to kind of whet your appetite about what work-based learning is and what some of these great providers are doing. So let's open it up. If you folks have questions, feel free to use the chat. And we got some great panelists here that are happy to answer any questions you have.
You know, you can use the chat, but also you can unmute yourself and just speak.
Yep, that's fine too. And if no one has questions, Ray's got a couple ones. But we'll give you guys a second first. If anyone has any, unmute and let us know.
And good afternoon. This is Angela Green from Administration for Children and Families, ACF from Region 5 in Chicago. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Hi, Angela.
Hello, Ray. Hello, Brian. Thank you, guys. Excellent job. And understand we all have experienced difficulties, so you have recovered well. I have a question for Jane Addams Resource Center, and really was excited about the program that you have here in Chicago. And I was wondering about your success rate. You talked about really moving individuals to self-sufficiency. How do you define that? And what has been your measure of success in that area?
So that's a good question. I mean, we do measure traditional workforce development, benchmarks like placements, retention, program completion, industry certification. We're at about 85 to 90% across programs in each of those areas. But for us, we're looking at a number of other financial capabilities metrics. So we look at credit score increases, net worth increases, and income increases. And by net worth, I mean reduction in liabilities and increases in assets. So we're pulling credit every 6 months for 5 years post-placement. But the other component of this is that we did a study, the Illinois Department of Employment Security did a study of our graduates for 3 years post-placement a couple of years ago. And so they looked at 3 years worth of data. And while our folks are entering the workforce somewhere around $17 an hour, their first year post-placement, they're getting about a 27% increase in their earnings. That's at 1 year. At year 2, it's a 17% increase. And then in year 3, it's 11%. And so if you benchmark that against the rest of us in Illinois, who only got an average of 3% each of those 3 years, it's pretty indicative that our folks are moving up a career pathway and are really significantly increasing their earnings. So we kind of look at that, but we also look at the other things that I mentioned. So credit score increases, net worth increases, and net income increases.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. Excellent.
Ray, I don't know if you saw, we also had a question from Derek that probably could go to all the panelists, but was related to how organizations acquire input from employers on curriculum development and skills that participants need to master. We already got a couple answers. Go ahead and check the chat. We'll send the chat comments out along with the PowerPoint and the recording when we get this all organized. But we already got a couple responses from panelists. But if any other panelist wants to talk a little bit about their experience working with employers to make sure they're getting the skills they need taught to their participants so that employers are comfortable with the outcomes, let us know. We'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I can go. This is Anna from Culinary Academy of Las Vegas. So every time we do work on revamping our curriculum, we get input from our employer partners. We do have a couple advisory councils. One is for front of the house, and that might include housekeeping, and then we do back of the house where we have chefs involved, and they tell us, yes, but these days we're not looking for this, or students need that. or even training departments are part of our curriculum review, kind of slight improvement as well, because we want to make sure that our students qualify for those jobs when they're ready to apply. So I hope that helps.
Thanks, Anna. And you can all see from the chat that almost every single one of our organizations has some form of employer advisory council that helps guide them in answering this question.
I had a question for all the panelists. How do you train people to deal with conflict? Especially if you're in food service, you're never going to avoid that. It comes up in manufacturing too, but I mean, you're dealing with the public. How do you train people for that?
I don't know if Anna's going to respond, but I can say that that's actually a very common problem for us on our sites. It is the only thing that will get you kicked out of our program immediately. The sites that we're working at and the schools that we're working with, there's simply no room for it. So for us, we actually spend a huge amount of time on through trust building and really trying to use like our morning meetings to engage with one another, to know where each other is at. And then we rely really heavily on our site supervisors to have that approach to conflict mitigation, to talking things out, to diffusing the situation. I'm certainly curious to hear how other folks do it, but it is a constant for us, and it's difficult to change behavior in trainees.
I can also add, again, this is Anna. All of our classification have a customer service piece built into the curriculum. So during the customer service, we really do scenarios and dealing with conflict and getting into with students. So they practice every day, and there is one side it's wrong, one side how would you do that correctly. But also our students are facing customers on a daily basis. So even with that being said, that's where they also practice with, of course, leadership from more experienced instructors.
As you can see, Ray, there's lots of panelists weighing in on the chat talking about the importance of mentorship and having mentors as part of helping work through that.
One of the things I might add to that, to my answer there, is that conflict resolution, conflict management is something that, as we provide that intrusive work-based learning at West Hills College Lemoore, that's a topic that comes up in that career awareness, those career awareness exercises. So when we bring guest speakers in, when we bring, Zoom webinars in with professionals, that's one of the questions that they get. How do you manage conflict in your workplace? What are some examples of conflicts in your workplace? Because we have so many sectors that we work in, it's going to be very sector based. And then once students get into an internship or some kind of job shadow, they are being managed by our work-based learning faculty member who has some reflective exercises for them to reflect on conflicts they've experienced in the workplace as well.
I'll echo that one of the ways that we help support any issues of conflict that come up that are usually related to some sort of cultural awareness on the job, and I know that you referred to this, Reagan, in your comment in the chat. We do it in sort of a team co-mentoring setting. So we implement something called the Young Manufacturers Association. So for these young people, once they get into the job and into the internship, part of that 5th day of ongoing mentoring and coaching is participation in a YMA meeting and conversation. And it's in those settings that we help workshop how they might address some of the things that come up on the job and how often they might come up against racism, they might come up against sexism, they might come up against other sort of lack of understanding of the cultural norms of the workplace and how to navigate all of that together. So that becomes really critical for their long-term success, and the co-mentoring and really the sharing of each other's experience becomes incredibly powerful. Not just the mentoring that we as the sort of organizational support staff might offer, but the support they offer each other.
Thank you. Since we are running behind, I want to close the discussion at this point, and I'm sorry for that because I know we go on much further, but we will send out the chat along with the PowerPoints, and this recording will be made available as well. Right now, we should take a break. Let's break for 5 minutes and then we'll come back with our second panel on apprenticeships and SNAP E&T. All right, 5 minutes.
Who's been counting? We had 5 minutes yet? Yeah? Should we go ahead and get started again? I see some thumbs up. Excellent. Okay, thank you so much for our first group of panelists. That was amazing. About half, just so everybody knows, about half our panelists are SNAP E&T providers already. The other half are not. A couple of them are looking into becoming SNAP ENT partners and are working with their states. Manny just got a shout out. We also have some folks on here that are kind of intermediaries over some work-based learning partners for SNAP ENT partnerships in their states, which is pretty exciting also. So if there are questions for all that, somebody put in just now about whether or not they could get contact info for presenters. Obviously, we wanted to have a lot more time for discussion. So we're going to try to figure out what to do there. We're going to have a second session probably this fall for sure. But then also in the meantime, we'll see if we can figure out a way to solicit questions from attendees and get some responses that we can include in the materials that we send out to everybody. But with that said, let's go ahead and shift to panel 2. Wanted to focus a little bit more on apprenticeships as well, and just sort of the role they play. We've had a lot of challenges apprenticeship partnerships in ENT. A lot of the reason is because of wages and how that affects SNAP eligibility. But we have some who've really been great partners at doing this, and we're looking very forward to moving on to panel 2 here. So we have representatives from multiple states, Washington, Illinois, and Oregon in our second panel here. And we're going to start off with Karen Dove, the Executive Director of Anew in Washington State. So Karen, thanks for being with us, and take it away.
Hi, Stella Wayman with Anew. I am not Karen Dove. Karen Dove is not with us today.
Yes,
sorry
you're going to be sure. Yeah, take it away, Stella.
Yes, but I am representing her on our behalf. Yes, so Anew. It is an acronym for Apprenticeship and Non-Traditional Employment for Women. And you can go ahead. Next slide. Next slide. Sure. Can you? Oh, thank you. I wasn't sure if you could hear me. So yes, who we are. Our mission is to improve people's lives by providing quality training, employment navigation, support services, leading to successful family wage careers. Our vision has always been, in the 1980s, to envision a thriving community where there's equal access to family wage, apprenticeable career pathways, resulting in a diverse, skilled workforce. We've known that, people of color, women, and other disadvantaged individuals, this is something that they need. This is a place to be successful in a career path that definitely gives them an opportunity, to take a skill with them. Anew also doesn't discriminate based on age, national origin, race, ethnicity, gender background, religion, sexual orientation, or disability. We serve all. Next slide. Our programs offer different pillars. We have 4 of them currently, and they are broken up into construction pre-apprenticeship training, our youth exploration programs, which serves our in-school youth that are 14 to 21. We also have construction boot camps that we host throughout Washington State, and these are usually short run for folks that are in more rural areas that come with hands-on skills but just need more of a certification behind it to get into some kind of family wage career in the construction sector. We also offer support services. Here, this is where we do barrier removal as well as employment navigation. And we make sure that we're taking care of our folks by doing retention services. This is done over a 2-year period. So we're really proud of the work that we do to make sure that our folks are still working in the chosen field that they love. We also offer diversity and advocacy training. Next slide. So with pre-construction training, why is it important? It is a competitive career to get into, especially as an apprentice. Some of the times they do require, the folks to come in with some kind of experience, even though it is an entry-level job. A lot do require some kind of industry certification. As we experience with our licensed trades, it's usually a long wait list. And a lot of people don't know what they're getting into. So in pre-apprenticeship training, you know, it helps them kind of navigate that field to learn a little bit more. It is a work-based learning, so it's very hands-on for the students to learn more about what it takes and what are the things that you need to do to become successful. We also know that it's a very physically demanding field, so we make sure that our standards in training builds up strength and endurance, making sure they learn, you know, proper technique, material handling, and also understanding that nutrition plays a very big role in all these physical fitness factors. We also expose our students to the multiple trades that we have partnerships with, or even new folks that we're meeting. They're either at an apprenticeship program, learning from the apprenticeship coordinators themselves. They're also out in the field on job sites. We also make sure that they know what the latest scope of work, wages, and benefits look like, especially from a local union standpoint. And we're also making sure that they're meeting like kind, right? Other people that look like them, as well as those that are out in the field, so that they can connect their own self to them and see themselves in the same boots. We also know that in the trades, you know, having a math skill is really important. So we ensure that they have the building trades math, as well as the measuring, whether that's cutting or reading a tape measure. All of those factors make a difference when it comes to building or even being on the roadside. Next slide, please. We also make sure that there's mentorship. We do these in different ways. We invite back our current apprentices or alumni that have gone through our program, and we do a mentoring session. That's done for every cohort that we host. We also ensure that, again, the apprenticeship programs are coming through. We're connecting them with someone so that they can walk that walk with them, especially when it comes with application, being out in the field. You know, it can be intimidating for a person who's never been around this type of workforce. We're also ensuring that contractors know our students, whether that's through our professional development with mock interviews, or if they're coming in and presenting themselves for employment opportunities. We also ensure that during the professional development, you know, they have the resume they need, as well as all the workshops that it entails, from interview skills to elevator speeches, and the likes. In this too, we do self-advocacy that has to do more of, like, I know a lot of people don't like to use emotional intelligence anymore, but it is literally learning and understanding what it is for them and communicating with others and understanding that kind of workflow. We ensure that there's networking skills during this time, whether it's on job sites or we're hosting our own job fairs. We're ensuring that they're meeting the folks they need to meet, and networking and understanding who are the key players in the different trades that they're interested in. There's also the advantage of career progression. We all know that some of us like to just go out and just be out in the field, enjoy ourselves with the skills that we've learned. And there's others of us that would like to move up, whether it's in out in the field or within the industry itself as a business manager. But we definitely make sure that folks are getting the things that they need in order to continue to progress in their chosen trade. Next slide, please. So what happens during our apprenticeship, pre-apprenticeship cohort? Not only are they learning the hands-on, you know, the hard and soft skills to pre-apprenticeship training, they're also getting elimination of barriers, whether that's financially or bringing in other folks that we can collaborate with to provide resources, especially when it comes to housing. Housing is such a big deal and very expensive type of support service that a person needs, especially in the state of Washington. At times, our folks will need, you know, some assistance with transportation during the program. So we're ensuring that all the things are touched when it comes to, you know, from start to end on our program, from work clothes to transportation, housing, daycare. We are ensuring that those services are addressed. And we do have them on a matrix to be sure that we're following them along through the program and ensuring that, you know, that they're going from, maybe they came in as a high barrier person that's at a 2, but they need to be at a 5. We're tracking that during the program. We're also looking at gender and anti-discriminatory support services. Sorry, I need a drink of water. We're making sure that, you know, we're addressing that and knowing and understanding what those needs, what kind of needs are those to be met. And then as, yep.
So if I can interrupt really quickly, this is so good, but if you could try to wrap up a little quickly, that'd be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. And then again, more support services regarding, you know, just work readiness, making sure that they're very supported during that time, as you see listed here. Next slide. We ensure that they have the diversity and inclusion training. We do annual summits between Western and Eastern Washington, as well as workplace training, advocacy training. That's the job site training. Next slide. And then our retention rates. Currently, we're graduating 80% of our graduates, which we host about 20 to 25 students. We're placing 80% of them, and then we're retaining 70 of the 80% that we've placed. And we do this over a 2-year period. And that's what we have for you.
Thank you so much, Stella.
Thank you.
Incredible retention rates. We very jealous. Okay, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm going to just crank right on here. We're going to go to Manny Rodriguez with Revolution Workshop in Illinois. Manny, take it away.
Thanks, Brian. Stella did a lot of the same things. You're going to see a lot of the same things. We're very similar programs offering very similar services. Good morning, or good afternoon, everybody here in Central Time. I'm Manny Rodriguez. I'm the founding executive director of Revolution Workshop. Next slide, please. Revolution Workshop really is a nonprofit pre-apprenticeship construction training program. You're going to see we're very similar to what Stella outlined in Anew. I think a lot of what we do are trying to follow best practices in this field about how do you prepare folks with barriers for these types of opportunities. We run a 10-week construction, again, pre-apprenticeship training program. We're located in the heart of the city of Chicago in Garfield Park on Lake and Homan, in one of actually the most underserved communities in our city. And our mission is really to recruit those unemployed and underemployed folks throughout the city of Chicago, but primarily we're talking about Black, brown folks and getting them trained up and getting them into this pathway. Next slide, please. So these are some program highlights. Again, this is very similar to some of the stuff you've already heard on the call. You know, again, we do it in a boot camp style. It's 10 weeks. It's very aggressive. They come every day, 8 to 4. We work with over 60 different community-based organizations to source candidates. That's kind of our model and what we feel our value is to the sector. Different community-based organizations are helping people when they're kind of at rock bottom get to some form of stability, and we're taking them from that some form of stability into employment, and that's really where we fit in the supply chain. We are a social enterprise, and I'll get into that and how we've used that as a way to prepare our folks. But we do have a heavy exposure to carpentry and woodworking. Because of that, we build wood furniture and we sell it with 100% of the proceeds coming back to the program. Carpentry, we pick carpentry because if you understand how walls, floors, and ceilings are built, that's pretty much transferable in any trade. Any trade is going to deal with walls, floors, and ceilings. If you understand that walls that have 16 inches on the center, the studs are 16 on center, that's transferable. If you know how to cut a 2x4 to size, measure and cut it to size, those things are transferable. So those are things that we do. We also provide industry recognized credentials from the National Center for Construction Education and Research, the NCCER. It is the largest accrediting body in construction in the country. We offer a core credential think of that as Construction 101. There are 9 modules in that training. There is safety, math, basic blueprint, hand tools, power tools, basic rigging, employability skills, communication, and material handling. They're tested on those modules, and 7 of the modules have a demonstration of hands-on competency requirement as well. And then again, what we do on the technical side, on the shop side, simulating a work environment, and I'll get into that, we really on the carpentry side, we're really doing a first-year carpentry's apprentice related technical instruction. We're providing that, but we're not giving them the actual theory and the book work. So they're not earning a Carpentry 1 credential, which is what you would get if, as a first-year carpentry apprentice, but they're doing the physical aspects of the work. Again, we simulate a work environment. We have 5 employer priorities, attendance being number 1 in our field. We have to really tell folks, especially from our communities, our culture is okay to come late. And we have to explain that that is never going to be okay in the field of construction, especially when time budgets are made on time. So you just can't do that. So attendance is number 1. Hustle, communication, attitude, and as you can see, technical skills being the last of the 5 priorities. If you can't show up on time, nobody's going to care if you're the best carpenter. You'll be the best unemployed carpenter in the world because you're not reliable. So those are going to, that's the way it is. Yes, Stella, time is money. We also provide life skills training, very similar to everyone. I think anybody that's doing this type of work and you're helping folks with barriers, you have to treat them holistically. You have to provide the remedial education supports. Most of my folks cannot test at a reading, 9th grade reading and math level. So we embed that into the program. We do provide financial capabilities work, which is a series of counseling. So, hey, I have this debt collector on my back. Can you help me with it? To financial literacy. What's a credit score and why is it important to you every day? And then, financial coaching. Hey, I want to buy a car. Okay, great. Let's pull out a budget and let's get that going. Coaching really happens on the retention side of things. Really, when they're here in the 10 weeks, our mission in that 10 weeks is to eliminate every barrier to their success as possible in the apprenticeship program. And so that's really what we're trying to do. Every one of the life skills, training pieces of this. We do in a classroom setting, but we then support every one of those classroom sessions with one-on-one coaching that is specific to that individual's barriers or needs. So in other words, we'll pull their credit score and explain it to them. And that might, lead to certain plans that we have to develop that's specific to that individual. So that's an example. Additional supports, we also provide tools. They graduate. If they graduate our program, they walk away with a basic set of tools. It's a great starter kit for them to be on any job, any trade. Personal protective equipment, including steel-toe boots. Transportation assistance. We do feed them because about 60% of our folks are at risk of homelessness. And so, how can you learn if you're hungry? And then dues and application fees, we provide all of those supports as well. I want to highlight retention support. I think, Stella, you did such a great job in your presentation highlighting this, and I really want to uplift it. I think any pre-apprenticeship program, well, regardless of any sector that you're in, if you're really helping these folks, again, folks that have barriers to employment, folks that have been underserved, folks that have been disenfranchised by our system, you have to provide the retention support, because it doesn't matter how many times you tell them in a shop setting, hey, this foreman's going to treat you with no dignity. You're not going to know how that feels until it actually happens. And when that happens, you got to make sure that there's support for that individual to come to talk it through, so that they don't just walk out, or heaven forbid, they don't just swing their fist. We got to make sure that that doesn't happen, right? And that's why retention is key to, again, long-term successful outcomes. Next slide, please. The other thing in apprenticeships that I always tell people that's so important, apprenticeships is really an employer-driven, a demand-driven model. And so employer partnerships are key. You cannot, in my opinion, do this without the employer being hand-in-hand lockstep with you in your program. So we have a dual customer approach, and we really believe that our employers, our contractors, are just as much our customers as our job seekers. I don't do something at the expense of either one of those groups, right? And it can be done. I know a lot of us in the social service side, don't think that this is possible. I'm here to tell you that it is absolutely possible. You have to get employers bought into your model right off the bat. So we have an employer advisory council. That was something that was very critical to us. We had to have employer feedback right from day one. And some of the largest general contractors in our city, really backed us from the beginning, and that helped us with the unions. That helped us with just gaining access to all their subs. They became our raving fans. They became the champions that helped us have more outcomes, more success, get our name out faster. We really were able to leverage them in every way that way. They also were able to provide critical feedback on our program. So I mentioned Carpentry 1, right? We're doing all of the technical stuff that you would do under Carpentry 1. We used to offer core in Carpentry 1, but our employers said, you know what, Manny, it's more important that they get the pace of the work and the hustle piece. And so I need you to just practice. They're spending too much time in the classroom. They need to be out there physically doing the work and understand the physical demands of the work. And so we did it. We the good thing about our model is that we're flexible. So the very next cohort, we didn't offer Carpentry 1 anymore. And so those are kind of things. Now, obviously, the employer advisory, they're going to give you job orders. They're going to give you honest skills assessments. We do a lot of stuff. We make sure that we give honest skills assessments. At the end of the day, I'm not going to force a square peg into a round hole. That doesn't end up allowing anybody to win. And so you really don't want to do that. You really want to be honest with the employer from day one. Let them, kind of make some of those decisions. Sometimes that can be a little hard because you really want to advocate for your folks, but you don't want to force a fit. I just really cannot state that enough. That could be one of your, biggest challenges. Obviously they provide feedback on new hires. They support the new hires, and how we work with contractors on that is a contractor may call us and say, hey, so-and-so has been great for 4 months, and all of a sudden they've called off, the last 2 days. Can you check in and see what's going on? Absolutely, no problem. Now, because of confidentiality and things that we're funded for, we can't always tell them what the issue was, but at least we can come in and that individual will be more likely to share what the real issue is with us. And we've already had this happen, 5 or 6 times in the past year, where it was a housing crisis. It was a death, an unexpected death. And they didn't know how to process these emotions. They didn't know how to process this challenge. And so we were there to help do that. And so that was a really a big key win for us. We do have the go ahead, Brian. Awesome. Am I going too far? I mean,
if you can chatter out. You warned us we were going to need to hook you, so.
Yeah, I'm trying to make it wrap it into apprenticeship. So okay, bottom line is they'll come in. Contractors will come in. They'll actually do job site tours. They'll do presentations. I think it's nothing better than having a Black or Latino foreman talk to Black and Latino people about what the expectations are and being real about what it is. My sector, unfortunately, suffers from a lot of racism and sexism. And so they need to hear from people that look like them about what that's going to look like. They also will do hands-on demonstrations for our folks as well. On-site interviews, we do mock interviews. They actually do them here. Contractors will come and do the mock interview day for us, and that's really great. And again, retention, you're going to hear me say it a lot. So that's really there. Again, we provide those retention supports ongoing. We say that you're a part of our family for as long as you want to be a part of our family. We have full-time staff dedicated to alumni services, and we'll continue to offer those services as needed. Next slide. This was our 2019 impact. After obviously 2020, we got really hit hard by COVID. A lot of things shut down here in Illinois. I'll go into that a little bit, but these are our stats. You can read them at your own leisure. These are kind of the ways that we have helped our folks. Next slide. Oh, and then, in COVID, we just had to do a whole about shift. And really why we were able to do that is 2 things. Our social enterprise was going well. We were able to bring people in and get them started in our social enterprise. But there was a lot of stuff we had to do. We essentially had to turn into a social service agency for our alumni. We raised some money. We were helping pay their bills while they made it over these gaps. While we put them on the CARES Act, on the unemployment, on the extended SNAP benefits. Once we did that, then our support would wane. But we really had to do an about face and really do that all of last year. But again, we've started cohorts and we are back up and running. And so that is us as a nutshell. And sorry for going a little over.
That was great, Manny. Super informative. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you guys all heard Moira say at the beginning how, and you all know that equity, especially racial, gender equity, huge priority for this administration. Really been a huge challenge in apprenticeships in the past and in the trades. And so it's just great to hear every one of our speakers so far talking about how they're really doing extra effort to reach out to minorities and women and how important that is. Okay, we're going to flip quickly here. Thank you so much, Manny. That was amazing. I'm going to flip to Kelly with Oregon Tradeswomen. Next two presenters are both from Oregon. And Kelly, take it away.
Brian, thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone today. I'm a fast talker because I'm originally from Cleveland. So if you want me to slow down, but if you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So Oregon Tradeswomen is a nonprofit. It's nice to see our sister organization to the north in Seattle here. Hello, Stella. Always a pleasure, sister. Our organization has been around since 1989, and we serve adult job seekers who identify as women. And we also serve transgender, gender non-binary, gender non-conforming folks. And so we provide a lot of support ongoing to folks who come through our pre-apprenticeship training program, but also folks in the community who are looking just for some support to navigate the nuances of registered apprenticeship and the construction skilled trades. So we do that through, and during COVID, we've done it virtually, but through monthly career education sessions. Our annual career fair attracts over 3,000 folks over 2-day event. And then support and networking events happen monthly. We do quarterly employer meet and greets. We have a mentoring program. We do an annual Trades Leadership Institute. And then we also provide advocacy and technical assistance to industry partners because, as Manny and others mentioned, that retention piece is really key. And because our industry is not necessarily welcoming to anybody, but in particular women and people of color still, that technical assistance to help shift job site culture is really critical. Next slide, please. And we do this work for the same reasons everybody else on this in this conference today do, because we care about providing low-income families, low-income job seekers with opportunities to have careers that support their families and benefits as a pathway out of poverty, and gender, racial, and economic justice. And the construction trades offers great careers with great benefits. And right now there happens to be a lot of demand. And hopefully as infrastructure investments continue to come down through our communities, we'll see a continued increase in demand for skilled labor. Next slide, please. Oh, I didn't know I put that fancy crap in there, sorry. Sorry, y'all. So who do we serve? We serve this similar populations to what everyone else, all the other presenters have shared already, but this is just a snapshot. But one thing I will say is that we are really lucky that we have a very high industry placement rate, and that's due to our strong partnerships with industry. So not only employers, but also the registered apprenticeship programs. And one thing that we're really, really proud of is also our retention rate, which I did not include on the slide, which is about 87%. So we have a formal retention program for 12 months post-placement, but quite frankly, most of our graduates stay involved over the course of their careers. And what we saw, similar to what Manny shared with COVID, we really shifted a lot of our work because we lowered our participant numbers to be COVID safe in our training program. A lot of our intentions shift with retention and support services and dollars out to students who were placed and really doing well in apprenticeship, but because of the challenges of COVID that were presented, were laid off or took layoffs to care for family and children, et cetera. Next slide, please. Our apprenticeship readiness class is 8 weeks. It's 192 hours. We're certified by Oregon's Bureau of Labor and Industries. Not every state has a certification program for career apprenticeship that might be changing with the new administration in the White House and the new Secretary of Labor. So we're keeping our eye on that. And we are a WIOA eligible training provider for Oregon. But what I want to say on this slide, it's really important to note that we have a strong relationship with our state Department of Human Services, and we work very closely with the SNAP folks, both in terms of providing training to the frontline folks so they know how to help clients access programs like ours, and also working with them to ensure that clients have all of the services that they need. And as they transition from, off of SNAP or TANF into careers and become registered apprentices where they're making significantly higher wages, right? We recognize that there's a gap that can be very detrimental to someone's economic stability and financial well-being. So we worked with, and I want to give all the credit to our Department of Human Services, who took a look at employment-related daycare and shifted the eligibility so that folks who were in a pre-apprenticeship training program that is certified in Oregon, they would be eligible and not lose any benefits. So that's really helped. And our partnership with them and our state Department of Transportation and Apprenticeship and Training Division, we utilize federal funds that flow through federal highway to provide childcare support. Oregon is the third highest in the country in childcare costs. So we recognize while folks are moving out of poverty into registered apprenticeship, where our average starting hourly rate last year was $22.81, there's still that gap in the early apprenticeship years where they need a lot of support. So we offer that. Next slide, please. I'm not going to go, actually, I think everyone on this program now has heard about what pre-apprenticeship is. It's really getting folks ready to be skilled and strong candidates for registered apprenticeship. The majority of our graduates go into registered apprenticeship and union apprenticeship programs, and then a smaller number go directly to employment. But in the commercial construction sector, most are in registered apprenticeship. Next slide, please. We do apprenticeship is considered the other four-year degree. And so once students go into a registered apprenticeship program, they're starting to earn towards their associate's degree. Next slide, please. Our eligibility requirements are super simple. Pass a drug test. We encourage you to study. At some point, you need to be able to get a driver's license. We can help you do that. You have to have a GED or high school diploma. If folks don't, we work with other industry partners to help them get ready and then come back in 18 and over. Next slide, please. All of the components are very similar to what other folks have talked about here today. Industry-related training, physical fitness, career counseling, employment support, supportive services, and retention programming are all key. Next slide, please. Our classroom instruction includes financial literacy, preparing for the trades with a trades resume, interviewing, understanding construction culture, which is what other folks have mentioned in the chat and elsewhere, that's really important to understand the industry folks are going into, and trades and applied math. Next slide, please. A lot of industry exposure. Tradeswomen Tuesdays, we have tradeswomen come in and talk about what it's like to be on the job, our hands-on training, and through our partnership with employers and registered apprenticeship programs, we're doing field trips with them, or they're coming into our classroom to do trade-specific hands-on training. Next slide, Brian. Next slide. We could skip this since we already talked about it. Fitness training, oh my gosh, I always say I'm going to join it, but then I never do and just eat a donut. So we really work hard to prepare folks for the trades. That includes their career mapping, their plan, their transportation plan, their child care plan, their financial plan, and basically that's their industry success plan. What are you going to do? What's your plan A, plan B, and plan C? Next slide, please. And that's it. Okay, thanks. I didn't get cut off, so I feel excited about that.
Oh my gosh, you talked so fast. That was perfect. You're a woman right after my own heart. I'm a super fast talker too. That was amazing. Thank you so much, Kelly. And thanks, you saw Candy right on what a great partner you are. And we think so too. So thank you so much for all the work you every day and for joining us today. Great presentation. And we're gonna flip really quickly here and go to Doug Dalton, who's president of Baker Technical Institute, also in Oregon, and he's our last speaker on this panel. And then we'll have time for a little bit of Q&A, and then we can head to our final closing presentation. So handing it over to Doug. Take it away.
All righty. Thank you, sir. And I just saw some notes in chat about honored to be on such a talented panel. I echo that. What great presentations. What I'm going to talk about is a little bit different, and it's part of the reason we didn't actually create a PowerPoint presentation, I think, is trying to kind of get a feel for what the other panelists had. We do have pre-apprenticeship programs very similar to what you've heard, along with apprenticeship programs that are part of our SNAP training, because we are a SNAP training provider. But we do some things that are different than that. So I think I'll change the conversation just a little bit. Baker Technical Institute, we are established, like many others, as a nonprofit public benefit entity in Oregon. But we are also now Oregon's newest technical college at the same time. And what makes us different in what we do as a SNAP training provider is our college, we focus on the trades, number one, but number two, we've built by design a fair amount of mobility. So a lot of our programs, and I'll go through some of those, we've built mobile training classrooms and trailers, and we've built industry partnerships that allow us to be mobile. The reason being is we have a lot of rural areas in Oregon, and our vision from the beginning was one of the biggest barriers is for people to be able to get to the training. So instead of expecting people to come up to us, we travel to them, and it's really been the difference maker. We can travel to tribes, prisons, high schools, rural communities, and actually take this training to them, and that's really been unique. And where that comes into play with us being a SNAP provider is we will set up training classes in different districts and regions for the Department of Human Services throughout the state. And so it allows us to come in, meet the demand in kind of a rapid response type of manner, and then go to the next district and so on, instead of expecting people to travel to us. So we provide technical and soft skill training, like many of the others that have mentioned, on job retention and job search and soft skills and interviewing, all those kinds of things. But our programs are broken into special career pathways. Really what we've identified through our industry partners is high demand. We have a heavy equipment operator school where and it's mobile, in our partnership with Caterpillar that we built several years ago. And we certify participants as operators. We can get them traffic control certifications, forklift certifications, but then we can also certify them to run all the heavy equipment you would see on a job site. It's probably been one of our most popular programs, and of course the demand for the heavy highway construction trades is tremendous. We have a truck driving and logistics program that is mobile, that we travel around to all the DHS districts as well, that we're a SNAP provider in throughout the state. And we actually bring in a mobile classroom. We bring semis and trailers with us, and we train people to get their commercial driving license and get some good experience driving trucks. All of these careers, and that I'll talk more about, we have a direct alignment with industry. And that's one of the things that I think is also pretty valuable in having SNAP providers that are so connected to industry, is we have opened so many doors with industry partners that when we have a class now, in fact, the last one we had in Central Oregon, we had more trucking companies asking to come speak to the students to hire them directly out of the class than we could actually even accommodate in the time. So being able to open that door and provide, the capacity, I guess, if you will, within industry to hire some of the folks that come out of these training programs has really been pivotal, because that's the key goal in the end, is employment and sustaining that employment. We have nursing programs that are mobile. We teach in hospitals all throughout the state of Oregon, and we have SNAP recipients and TANF actually taking our training and obtaining employment. It's not atypical for all of our nursing students to have 100% job offers before they leave the hospital. And I know the earlier conversation was a little bit about the work-based learning concepts, and when we have all of our hands-on training that's mobile out in these regions, we're setting up actual job sites. So they run equipment on job sites, they drive trucks, and the nursing students, they're actually going to do clinical rotations with patients in hospitals. So while they're training, it's in a work-based environment and they're interacting with industry. So it almost guarantees placement, or at least opportunity for placement. We have other programs. I mean, there's probably no sense in going into all of them. We have women's pre-apprenticeship program that's running right here at our campus today. We've got computer science programs, agriculture programs, a culinary school. Again, all just based on the trades and with a mobile component. So that's pretty much the summary that I had for BTI and how we're different. I think for us, it's probably a step beyond the apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship. We're really focused on industry certification, and that really would be the next step. Once somebody's completed a pre-apprenticeship program, we would be taking participants and getting them their actual, I guess, industry certifications that they would need to be career ready and go straight into a career. So anyway, thank you for the invitation and being a part of the program.
Thank you so much, Doug. Excellent presentation, and thanks for the work you're doing. We really wanted to get at least a couple schools here to talk about what's happening at colleges. So really appreciative to Chris joining us from California and Doug here from Oregon. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Ray. He's been monitoring the chat. We got a few minutes for questions before we hand it over to Eric. So great work, panelists. Ray, I just want to do a quick reminder. I think Jack's on the line too. So if you want to mention Jack quickly, that he's here for to help answer questions as well, and then dive right in.
Sure. Jack Krikorian is with the Technology and Manufacturing Association, which is an employer association. They have about 800 members. That's right, Jack?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, basically we're an independent trade organization, and we focus on assisting small and mid-sized manufacturers with training, insurance, and networking. We do have a 3-year apprenticeship program in metalworking that's approved from the Department of Labor. So the difference here is that most of my students are already working for member companies. We do have an education foundation that we help local high schools to purchase equipment for metalworking. And we also do work with workforce development through WIOA.
And, here is an organization where they are the employers, they have the apprenticeship program. This wouldn't necessarily be receive funding from SNAP Employment and Training, but coming into that apprenticeship program, they would, because there are some of the training organizations represented here that are potentially supplying employees to the member companies of TMA, who then would enter in apprenticeships. And typically the way this works in manufacturing is you often have to work at a company in a year before they will make you an apprentice. But getting in the door is the first step, and that's really where SNAP Employment and Training is most helpful in that situation. So let me ask you, Jack, and all the others, particularly the colleges and Oregon Tradeswomen, actually for everybody, where do you get your clients? Especially, how do you identify people that are or how do they self-identify people that are good candidates for careers in this field, and how do they connect with apprenticeship programs?
So for TMA, we do have a little entrance exam, because we are, keep in mind that the students have already probably gone through a pre-apprenticeship program of some sort, and our curriculum is basically based on a little bit higher level, because they are already working. So for us, for TMA, majority of our workers, again, are coming from our member companies.
Okay, anyone else? Where do you get your clients from, your trainees?
Hi, this is Stella with Anew. So we have a multi-step outreach process that we do for enrollment. So not only are we utilizing, our private and public entity partners, we also have the RPAC, which is the Regional Pre-Apprenticeship Collaborative, and we also post on that. We use social media heavily. We do in person as well as Zoom, and we offer like multiple times throughout the day. Some are early, some are late in the evenings, because we know, especially when we're trying to serve our BIPOC community, we have to be able to have many time slots available for them. You know, we're dealing with folks that usually come from an unstructured background, and so our goal is to be sure that we're available by any means. So that's how we're getting our folks.
This is quickly, a lot of this from an ENT perspective for some of our states is a lot of this comes in through reverse referrals as opposed to necessarily direct referrals from the states. Go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I was just going to say we get a significant number of referrals from our ENT staff, and then sometimes our registered apprenticeship program partners refer folks who weren't quite ready to get in directly to registered apprenticeship. And then, as Stella shared, we work with a lot of community organizations also and the other pre-apprenticeship program providers that cross-refer to make sure that folks are getting served.
Yeah, we get very limited referrals from the state ENT network, but we do get from 60 different community-based organizations. About half our people from that, and the other half come from word of mouth. Alum that family members, friends, whatever. They're saying, hey, come check them out. They're for real, and to me that shows that you're doing something right? That you have folks that are willing to refer their friends and family.
Different question. Have you seen an uptick or a decrease in the proportionate return of women into your programs during this COVID recovery period?
Yeah, I can take that one. At Oregon Tradeswomen, we saw a significant increase in applications, and they generally were speaking from women that were not heads of households, didn't have children, but at the same time, folks that had completed our program were struggling with lack of work because the majority of them are moms, or single, heads of households, and had to take layoffs and things. And then with COVID, in order to provide COVID safe training, we had to significantly reduce the number of folks we served. So we went from serving 30 to 35 in a class to serving 10 to 12 in a class. So we're very much looking forward to coming around from COVID to bringing our numbers back up.
Okay. There was a question in the chat to all the providers. How do you help participants cover basic living expenses while they are in training? Do you offer stipends? And some were answered in the chat. Oregon Tradeswomen, we do not provide stipends, but we provide a lot of support. Anew offers programming part-times 3 days over 12 weeks, so folks are possible to get a part-time job while they're in training. Are there other comments on this, on supporting participants, most of whom, if they're SNAP employment and training, they have very little income to begin with? And getting through a long training period is often a barrier for our folks.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things there, Ray. Absolutely, it's part of the reason why we structure our program to only be 10 weeks. Is being cognizant of the fact that you're asking them to come every day, and if you're not paying them, that's a very difficult proposition. We do offer a weekly stipend. It's not a lot of money. It's $50. But we do give transportation assistance. We do feed them when they're here. We provide, some light breakfast and coffee, and then also, a full lunch. And so, and we provide, again, transportation assistance, and then those PPE and all the tools, so they don't have to put any of those things out of pocket. And there's absolutely no cost to the program for the participants. So that's kind of how we deal with it. Now, there are opportunities every once in a while from our contractors where they may need a laborer or just an extra pair of hands. And sometimes on a weekend, we can hook up somebody on jobs like that as well. And that's turned out to be pretty successful.
Thanks so much, Manny. Hey, Ray, we got a really good question from ETA, from Department of Labor, about referrals from job centers. And I think we should make this last question and then head over to Eric. So have anybody been getting referrals either from WIOA or from American Job Centers?
Brian, I would say at Oregon Tradeswomen, even though we have a good relationship with our regional workforce investment boards, American Job Centers, we don't get very many referrals from them. And we used to do some training with frontline staff, and so we're going to pick that back up this year, because I don't know if there's a correlation, but it's always been a struggle. We definitely get our referrals elsewhere.
I'm with Kelly. Very few referrals from the workforce network, that part of the workforce network. We do receive here in Chicago, some of that money is not just all handled by the American Job Centers. There are community-based organizations that are contracted to do WIOA services. And those organizations we do have, referrals from. But from the actual AJCs, not a whole lot of success at all.
I've heard that from other partners too that I've talked to. I used to be really involved in the workforce centers in Wisconsin. We often were hearing that as a problem, and we're working to try to fix it. So Lori, good feedback, but at least from a few of our presenters. And then Stella wrote back just also about partnering with food banks to help with the question Ray asked a second ago. All right, well, I want to thank all my presenters, all these presenters for panel 2 so much. That was amazing. Really appreciate it. I'm going to turn it back to Ray so he can introduce Eric.
Hi, Eric, you on? Eric, are you here?
I am,
Yes.
Ray.
Yes, you are. Good.
Here, I'm here. I just love to hear you call me many times.
Thanks for joining us, and thanks for your patience.
Fascinating.
So, and I don't know how many of our attendees know you, but you've been with Jobs for the Future Center for Apprenticeship and Work-Based Learning for a while, since you left the Department of Labor, where you were also very active in building apprenticeship programs and setting policy for apprenticeships. Thank you for being here. I have a set of questions for you, kind of an interrogation. So we thought we'd start that with one of the easier questions, and then move into the harder stuff. So there are a range of work-based learning options, and you're familiar. You guys hear me okay?
Are you letting
I can't hear you, Brian.
Are you letting him present?
No. We're just giving questions.
We'll get there, Brian. We're good.
So you're familiar with the SNAP employment and training population. They're
Yes.
Folks with on food assistance, have very little cash. What do you think are the best options for SNAP E&T participants in work-based learning?
Well, I'm glad I stayed on for the entire time. This has been extraordinarily useful and interesting, and there's a lot of great work going on out there. I was so blown away by much of it, by just about everybody. So I mean, I threw out my prepared remarks, and I'm just going to sort of respond to some of the things I heard here today, if that's okay.
That's great.
So if I dropped in from Mars and listened to this webinar, I would think that SNAP participants can only do building trades, maybe manufacturing. And I believe in this modern day work-based learning world and apprenticeship system, that's not necessarily the case. Work-based learning and apprenticeships are happening with all sorts of populations in IT and cyber and healthcare and insurance and a lot of different industries. We don't have to be stuck in building trades and a little bit of manufacturing. While there's nothing wrong with that, and I love those opportunities and some of the programs we talk about today, that's not the only game in town for these folks. And I know that, because of the pandemic, I'm sure your SNAP E&T roles have grown and you've got a wider net of people coming in. But that's not the only game they can play, is in the building trades. However, it's a great opportunity for many folks, and some of the programs that were on this morning have demonstrated why that is. But it also, Ray, makes a much stronger point for the pre-apprenticeship that we discussed along the way. And we're really focused on pre-apprenticeship a lot at JFF. I'm going to tell folks who don't know us about JFF. I'll do my slides momentarily. It's only 4 of them. I'll zip through them. But let me say this. The workforce highway is littered with a lot of really bad to mediocre pre-apprenticeship programs over the last 30 and 40 years in this country. Just really half-assed programs. Probably not supposed to say that on a federally sponsored meeting, but a lot of really half-assed programs that, did some GED, a little bit of life skills and maybe a little contextual learning. And then the completers of those mediocre programs never really went into apprenticeships. They used that as their job training to go get a laborer's job or something like that. Well, that's not the spirit and the intent of pre-apprenticeship. And I would ask everybody, I don't know if I put a link in my slides, but if you go to our website at jff.org/apprenticeship, there's a pre-apprenticeship framework in there that builds on top of DOL's pre-apprenticeship framework that basically says you shouldn't be doing any pre-apprenticeship that doesn't lead directly into a high quality registered apprenticeship, right? It's like a pre-game warm-up. You don't do a pre-game warm-up and then don't go to the game, right? You don't do a pre-apprenticeship and then don't do an apprenticeship. You may do that, or you may go on to additional post-secondary education and training, or you go into a job directly. So those are options, of course. Not everybody's going to do that path, but I think the goal and aspiration is, hey, we want to give you a high-quality pre-apprenticeship experience that gives you the entry-level requirements to enter an already registered program. So if it's in building trades, obviously we can see what the electricians do, the pipe fitters do, the painters, the laborers, and get people prepared to that. I was so thrilled to see Kelly talk about, driver's licenses, thinking about that, because that's really important in almost every union building trades apprenticeship, so folks can get around. There really is a need to prepare people for the entry-level requirements. What would be a beautiful world is if everything was direct entry, you completed this pre-apprenticeship and boom, we're going to automatically accept you into the apprenticeship, but the real world doesn't work that way. All we can do is make relationships with our local and regional partners in the building trades and the unions, if that's who you have, and say, look, will you at least interview our people who successfully complete our pre-apprenticeship program? Because our goal is to prepare them to go into your apprenticeship programs. But there's also a lot of other apprenticeship opportunities, that registered apprenticeship, and I'm very specifically talking about registered apprenticeship right now. Look, work-based learning and apprenticeship, we're stepchildren of the entire workforce system up until about 5 or 6, 7 years ago during the Obama administration, when he set a priority on apprenticeship, and work-based learning flowed a great deal from that. Trump supported it, although they came up with another wacky idea that Biden turned around, and now Biden's continually to support apprenticeships. And keep an eye out, because there's going to be a ton of money coming towards registered apprenticeship, high quality, gold standard, quality control apprenticeships. And we at JFF, our belief is that, there's a lot of on-ramps and pathways into registered apprenticeship, right? And I think that's what a lot of the conversations, that Manny and Stella and everybody has been talking about this morning, right? So how do we create those pathways to be really effective to get our folks, into these positions? I would also encourage folks on the line to go to apprenticeship.gov. That's the DOL's mega website on apprenticeship. Yeah, it's a great website and all that, but they've got something called an apprenticeship finder. And you can go down to your zip codes or whatever within 25-mile radius, and you can search other apprenticeships in your area. And all of us on this call who are trying to in this space, we should go out and make friends and partners with all of those folks, because you're going to find some DOL grantees who are looking for candidates. We know that equity and diversity is a big part of the Biden administration. It's a big part of the it's a big part of every new secretary's agenda. But the populations that we work with, are a very good pool to find good first, diverse second talent. So if you go to the apprenticeship finder and go knocking on doors or calling folks or getting your employer or councils involved in that. And did I see Derek Dolphin is on this call? Oh my.
Yes, he is.
Oh my goodness. Hey, Derek. Getting connected locally. I mean, look, all of workforce is local, right? I've worked for a local workforce board, a state workforce board, a policy agency, and then a federal agency. And let me tell you, there's a lot of cool stuff that happens at the federal and state level, but all the action is local and regional, and that's where you guys are. So local businesses, local employers, local union councils are all your peeps, right? So you should be making friends with all of them. I know many of you do. So So yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of pathways in, and we got to create those pathways in. Like we do an apprenticeship program at JFF. We have a big contract for DOL, and it's working with Opportunity Youth, 18 to 24, to go into pathways into apprenticeship. Well, if you're 18 to 24 and you're out of school and you're out of work, you're sort of out of luck in getting opportunities into apprenticeship. But we specifically targeted this population so we could create some inroads, test it out a little bit, get some ideas, and we've been a project that scared the hell out of me has actually gone exceedingly well because we've worked with community-based organizations and workforce boards. I'm going to repeat that, and workforce boards who have done a really good job at getting Opportunity Youth using WIOA funds or grant funds or state funds to get a more challenging population on ramps into apprenticeship. And we've done 500 in a year. That's like huge, right? So so anyway, I'll stop there, Riggs. I know you got some other questions.
Well, actually, this is a good segue to talk about what JFF is doing with non-traditional apprenticeships. I wouldn't say non-traditional, non-industrial apprenticeships.
Yeah.
As you know, it's like we are new to non-industrial apprenticeships in the U.S., but it's been well established in other parts of the world. And I'd like you to talk about that and what JFF is doing.
Yeah, I'm going to broaden that out. I'll talk a little bit about JFF, but really I'll talk about what's going on nationally. What's talked about in DC and on Capitol Hill and in states and all of that jazz. But it's essentially, if you look at DOL's data, about 90% of all new apprenticeship programs the last couple of years, I'm going to say that again, 90% have been non-union and non-traditional, right? So union programs are still there. Building trades is still there. They predominate in terms of numbers, but less so over the last 6 years. Not because they're doing anything wrong. Things are shifting. So more people are going into IT, and you don't need a 4-year degree to do IT apprenticeships. I mean, that's the whole point of apprenticeships, right? You don't need 4-year degrees. I mean, we've had some great examples in Chicago. I'm sorry, Chicago people know that, over at Aon and Zurich Insurance and elsewhere, that have gone to recruit from boards, community colleges, community-based organizations, women's programs, ex-offender programs, right? To say, look, we don't need 4-year degrees. We just need to be able to train the people the way we want them, right? And again, that sort of gets us in that conversation as to an employer. Hey, you want to go out and buy a workforce? You want to procure it? You want to put out an ad and take what comes in? Or do you want to build a workforce to meet your needs, right? And apprenticeship allows you to build it. I see you, Manny. You're with me. I got it. You got to build that workforce. And so the engagement of these employers, these employer councils and all that is great. But I think that point about, hey, you need to build a workforce. You need to train them the way you want them trained. Don't just take what the college gives you. Don't just take what the workforce board or the high schools give you. You want to train them the way you want them. So we do a lot of different things, but at JFF, I mean, one of our bread and butter is an advanced manufacturing project where we're partnered with Chicago Women in the Trades and Women in Manufacturing and a bunch of other groups that you all probably know and love. And the goal of that is that at least 51% or more of the apprentices that we develop have to be women or people of color. And that's a $5 million contract, no, more than that, but it's a 5-year contract is what I meant to say. It's not classy to talk about money. But we, want to do that over 5 years and bring in a number of women and people of color into manufacturing, just trying to level the playing field a bit, right? So we're doing that. We have a big focus on youth apprenticeships. And when I'm talking about youth apprenticeships, I'm talking about in-school, high school, registered, high-quality apprenticeships. People say, oh, isn't that what pre-apprenticeship is for? No, you can do registered apprenticeships in high schools. Now, most of your SNAP participants are adults, so that may not be an issue, but it's 18. Those are high school with a post-secondary transition where young people start apprenticeships in high school and they cross over and do dual enrollment into community college for their related instruction, and then they continue on with their apprenticeship after they post. A lot of good things. That.
I feel the need to interrupt you just briefly on a SNAP technical matter. So we can support youth over ages 16, but we cannot supplant a public education program. So if the apprenticeship program is something as part of like CTE, we couldn't fund that. But once they leave high school, that entering a pre-apprenticeship program or apprenticeship program, we can support them so long as they are on SNAP.
Yeah, no, I did.
Which good apprenticeships are going to pay them a lot of money, so they may not be able to maintain SNAP eligibility for very long, but we can help them get started.
Well, that's sort of, you're going to knock them off their eligibility as soon as they get started. Look, in the WIOA system, you can be an apprentice, and the key is that workforce boards just should not exit them for a year. Keep working with the apprentice because they're going to need support. They're going to need some other things. We talked about support and retention before, so you should be able to continue to work with them longer, but I'll let you fight that over in Congress, not me. So we do a lot of youth apprenticeships for in-school youth, and pre-apprenticeship pathways for these SNAP families should be thought about not only for participants but for their children. We also have this Opportunity Youth Program contract that I talked to you about, but we have a number of other smaller partnerships that focus on diversity and equity in apprenticeship. We also have a whole lot of folks who now, remember, we're the Center for Apprenticeship and Work-Based Learning. We have a whole lot of folks who are interested in high-quality work-based learning. We have 7 basic principles of that. I think many of you hit them, which is work-based learning should be paid. I'm sick of volunteer work experiences and getting free labor. You should pay people for their work experiences. You should include experience, even if it's just job shadowing in a pre-apprenticeship program. Preferably, you can do more than that. But there's a number of ways to construct that. But we're working on IT apprenticeships in the Bay Area. We've worked with agricultural apprenticeships, cybersecurity. Purdue University has an excellent cybersecurity apprenticeship program that is almost an apprenticeship program in a box that your folks could potentially connect to. We're doing things with local boards. We're doing a lot with local community colleges. Matter of fact, one of our projects is working with 53 different community colleges, including city colleges of Chicago, by the way, since we have so many Chicago people on the line, about community colleges do a better leading job in registered apprenticeship. And so you might want to check with your college if you want to partner with them on setting up some sort of pathway program, pre-apprenticeship to apprenticeship or something like that. I guess my message is, you don't have to say just because they're a SNAP participant that they're only okay for building trades or that they're only okay for pre-apprenticeship. Some of them might be ready, and in some cases you can wrap apprenticeship and entry-level stuff into a registered apprenticeship, right? You can wrap the employer's onboarding and safety training. We always say that most employers are already doing many things kind of like apprenticeship, and they just have to put an apprenticeship wrapper on it. Organize it, structure it, get the on-the-job learning, get the mentoring and supervision, get the related technical instruction or a competency-based program. It sounds so difficult. There's a ton of myth and misperception out there about apprenticeships, and so we got to work through a lot of that. I would refer people to our website at jff.org/apprenticeships, and we can, there's a ton of material on there that you can feel free to use. So yeah, let's knock through these slides real quick, Ray, because I want to make them available for people as well. You can just go JFF apprenticeship, and that'll get you to us, jff.org/apprenticeship. Once you hit the next slide, there's only 4 or 5 of them, so I'll do them real quickly. We at JFF, for those of you who don't know us, we're a national organization. We're a nonprofit, been around 35, 40 years. We prepare people for future work. Economic advancement, economic mobility is our North Star, meeting employer needs and helping them. And, we want to make employers successful and we want to make workers successful. So we try to do both of those things. Next slide, please. We work with community colleges. So that's our center stuff. That's our old website, but that'll get you there. Or just Google JFF and apprenticeships, and that'll get you there. Tons of information on there. We have our pre-apprenticeship framework up there. We have a pre-apprenticeship framework for IT, and we just published last week a pre-apprenticeship framework for Opportunity Youth, which to me can be applied, also for many SNAP participants or the participants in general that many of you work with. Next slide, please. I left these marks on here on purpose because I did this in the middle of the pandemic, but, the labor market, was tightening. They couldn't find jobs anywhere or couldn't find people anywhere. Then we had the pandemic and nobody was hiring. Now people are hiring and they can't find workers. It's a messy place but boy, what an opportunity that is for people like us. Because employers are again struggling to find workers. COVID-19 and this whole recovery thing, I don't think has even been unleashed yet. Young people and workers cannot always afford the cost of post-secondary education. There's all sorts of issues with Pell and WIOA training and all of that. There's huge changes in technology in the workplace that continue to impact workers and employers. Our biggest problem is our country, is misaligned between the workforce needs and how particularly young people are prepared for careers. You already know that, which is why you're doing what you do. And we already know that the data will tell us that apprenticeship and work-based learning are effective ways to prepare people and move them into high-paying jobs and careers. Helps employers, also helps workers. Next slide. And, these are just the basics of apprenticeship. Employers got to lead the way. People have been asking about that. I mean, you need to convene employers and not just your advisory councils. Advisory councils are nice. I don't know how yours are structured, but they got to meet quarterly, then more for coffee and donuts. So hopefully you're using them. Hopefully you're picking high growth sectors. Hopefully you're educating and training them on the successes of work-based learning and whether they do work-based learning and then potentially hire people from that, which I know many companies will do, or whether they're interested in an apprenticeship program. You've got to be armed and prepared to listen to the employer and offer them solutions that work with that. The related, so you have structured on-the-job learning on the job, you have related technical instructions. The key about registered apprenticeship is the company can bring them in at a lower wage. Let's say it's an IT service center and they're bringing in people at $18 an hour. They can bring an apprenticeship in at 14 years. That's at $14 an hour. That's allowable. But as the apprentice gains skills and competencies, they need to bump up the wages in alignment with that, right? That's the whole sort of notion of apprenticeship is you're starting them entry level and you're advancing them. The other thing that most people don't understand is that apprenticeships are a job from day one. It's not a training program. It's a job in which you get the training and instruction to advance, and it results in an occupational credential. And you can build credentials into pre-apprenticeships, right? Short term, you might want to build OSHA in or ServSafe or, whatever. I'm sure our friends in Vegas can tell us, for food service industry, what are some good initial certifications in a pre-apprenticeship, and then other certs or credentials that you can then add into a longer term registered apprenticeship program. So I think that's all. Is there another slide I have there?
No, that's the last slide. And I think Microsoft Teams is about to end us because I got a warning and it may end in like 10 seconds. So I want to thank everybody for hanging in there and especially for our panelists who gave such awesome presentations. And hopefully this doesn't kill us. And I was going to see if there are any questions for Eric from the audience. Also, we're going to send out this chat because there's a whole lot of information that's been put into the chat, especially in the last 15 minutes. I'll take any questions from the floor at this point.
Yeah, I'm easy to find too. Anybody can shoot me an email or I'll get you in touch with the right people in our Center for Apprenticeship and Work-Based Learning, where we work all over the country as a training, technical assistance provider, and capacity builder to help employers, colleges, community-based organizations, boards be good at apprenticeship work.
Thank you so much, Eric. And with that, Ray, I think maybe we should just send out a solicitation to our invitees and let them send some questions in, and then we can kind of funnel them and figure out how to get them to our panelists maybe after today, given that it's rolling up on 12 o'clock. So I just want to echo on what Ray said. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thanks so much to our panelists and Eric for your great presentations and the work you do. And thanks everybody for bearing with us in the first 40 minutes of this. Boy, that was a disaster. You guys really stuck with us and we really appreciate it. And we will get all these materials out soon, and we will be planning a part 2 of this probably sometime this fall. We hope you'll all be able to come back and join us then. So thanks so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Great job, Brian and Ray. Great job, man.
Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Angela. Thanks for joining us.
So glad to have you.
Awesome job.
Oh, Hey, Brian, nice job. I've had a hard time getting off mute. Thanks for hanging in there and making it come all together. So thank you.
Thank you so much for joining. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it was some great information shared. So, yep, technology happens, so we won't beat ourselves up for that.
Yeah, but oh my gosh, some great information today. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks. Bye-bye.
Yeah, okay, bye-bye.